I also know that there's a lot of wasted biomass that comes through our civilization. So what I try to do in Zero Waste in the last best place is pull all of these materials and artifacts under one tent or one umbrella and figure out, where it all goes. I'm not gonna try to stagger you with statistics, but one of the big things we see right now are plastics in the ocean, right? Everyone's kind of seen that, the macroplastics harming large mammals, the microplastics harming some of the microbial life. So what can we do right here in Missoula to take those things that otherwise become pollution and turn them into reliable artifacts? And Dylan's going to show you how we take some of the things that are just kind of going into back into nature, into what also has been termed the pedosphere. Anyone heard the term pedosphere before? So everyone's heard biosphere, right? That's kind of where things live. In the book, I talk a lot about the technosphere. And so, we as humans have slowly been turning the world from the biosphere into a technosphere, right? It's anything indoors. It's all our server farms. It's all our factories. In a lot of ways, it's our home. But the pedosphere, like I was mentioning, is kind of just everything under our feet, right? It's the lint that falls off our jackets. This little funny chunk of plastic that I picked up just walking over here this morning. It's this little twist tie. It's the dog hair that you suck up from your house, and like what the heck do I do with that? Do I put it in the landfill? Do I compost it? Do I set it on fire in my what do I do with the lint ball that comes out of my dryer? Do I go and hang that up and hope that a bird makes a nest of it? Oops, what if there's a piece of dental floss in there and that the bird takes the dental floss and that ends up off in the ocean? So these are the pesky little problems that I try to talk about in the book, and that I show on my blog and my website. So that's really my intro. Any just quick questions based on what I've said so far? Concerns?
And the book is also about how to move more towards zero waste.
It is. Yeah, it is. I show a few examples. So right here, this is my shed in my house, and everything except the shingles on top, I just scavenged. These are pallets that somebody had sitting out by the sidewalk. Somewhere in here, I talk about in my book, was a clip off of a car top carrier made of plastic that someone was getting rid of. This is all tile, just broken dishes from my house that I turned into a little sun. This is also a pallet. This is one of these pesky hollow core doors that you see over at Home Resource. In the book, I also talk about taking apart someone's couch that they were gonna take off to the landfill. So just pulling the staples out, repurposing the wood. There's a lot of the couch wood is actually went into the shed. So yeah, I try in the book to. But I'll just give you one more kind of big picture thing before I turn it over to the next speaker. But everything we touch, everything we see, even everything we sort of ingest, everything that goes through our little biosphere is going to go in one of three directions. So if you sort of take a Boolean approach to it, there's only three directions things can go. They can go up, they can go down, or they can stay here. So in the book, I summarize that as sort of a burn, bury, or build solution. And there's really no other way out unless someone discovers hyperspace. No, I'm going to hide my waste off somewhere else. So the burn solution is really what you might call a waste to energy solution. So in the book, I also show, I didn't bring them today, but just a way to take a lot of the hydrocarbon waste, and I'll admit this isn't the best. I think the build demo that we're going to see over here is probably superior. But the burn solution is, well, we're going to take waste carbon. We could even imagine taking this little waste piece of cigarette wrapper that didn't become oil, didn't become asphalt, didn't become butane, didn't become propane, and use it as fuel, right? So we use carbon as fuel all the time. I saw a lot of Priuses in the parking lot, so I didn't see any fully electric cars. Maybe one. Okay, cool. In the future, hopefully we move away from the carbon energy economy. But anyway, the burn that I talk about is sort of the carbon that goes up into the atmosphere. We're all doing it right now. As I talk, carbon dioxide is going out and going up because it's hot. The berry solution, and if you look at the Zero Waste International Standard, they say we don't want to burn anything and we don't want to bury anything. But in my mind, the berry solution is, let's take the compost, let's take the leaves and turn that back into healthy dirt. Even let's take some glass. I don't see a problem with taking crushed glass. It just becomes sand. Put that back in your garden. Put that back in your yard. Same thing with the cardboard. As long as the tape and glue and everything is off of it, that compost. So as much as we can give back to the earth as carbon, I think the better. But then the third solution is the build, and that's kind of what I've shown here. Taking things that otherwise would go to the landfill and doing something useful. So that's kind of the big picture on the book, and then that's it for me. So any other questions?
I'm Dylan McAfee. I'm just here to talk about Precious Plastic Missoula, which is essentially an extension of this greater program called Precious Plastic, which was developed in the Netherlands by a man named Dave Hackens. It's essentially a open source plastic recycling program that is really just the engineering plans for 5 or 4 plastic recycling machines. These are them. This is a shredder, an extruder, an injection molder, and a compression oven. And I saw this project. I just came across it surfing the internet, and I thought it would be something really awesome to have here in Missoula to enable us to recycle plastics beyond just number 1 to number 2. The program is compatible with everything from plastic grocery bags to styrofoam. Currently, our plastic recycling program has been scaled down in Missoula, so not only do we only accept number 1 and number 2, number 2 is only milk jug plastic now. They don't take caps, lids to plastic bottles, and there's so much plastic that doesn't fit the profile that is accepted by our recycling centers here in town, that could potentially be dealt with on a small scale. And all of these machines are able to be scaled, so as the program grows, the machines can be rebuilt at a larger scale. So this is the first of 4 machines. And essentially this project is just operating out of a garage right now. These are some coasters that could potentially also be tiles. This is a little example of what can be done when machining is added to the process. But this is all those were all made in just this simple mold. Particle board with a veneer in this bottle jack. Just rudimentary bottle jack press. The applications are really endless. Plastic is a material that we have treated as a single-use throwaway material, but it has the potential to be and is really, by virtue of the material, a long-use, durable material that could become building materials, fencing,
Railroad ties.
Railroad ties. Decking. It's already being used as Trex decking, which I believe is wood, particle, and pop bottle plastic.
Do your systems, do they work with all the different types of plastic?
There are a few types that won't remelt, but I think the system has the ability to incorporate those types of plastics as well, just by possibly shredding them, building a container essentially out of the plastics that are remelt and remoldable, and then pouring those shredded materials and packing them into a container and essentially making a building block out of it. The number 2 is all 350 degrees to reshape. And that's kind of what we're wanting to start with and stick with for a while. We'll be able to work with all the colors of number 2. A lot of your grocery bag plastic is number 2 or number 4. So all that fits in this program. The other thing that's really cool about it is that plastics, they have to be organized by type to be remolded, but they can be organized by color as well, and the process can be done really artfully, just by essentially using the plastic as paint. People are doing this all over the world, and I think we can do it here too. We just need some funding. That's kind of where we're at right now. Is just looking at, continuing to get people who are interested in supporting the project, and so that we can build the next machines and really just start to play with the material and build creatively and create products that are valuable and that really fit the profile for plastic being something that doesn't decay for 400 years. This shop is making flower pots and large tiles.
Can you use standard grout to use it as a tile? Have people done that?
I'm not sure. I would imagine that it'd probably fit more together with tighter tolerances. Create a mold that's really precision. I don't know who asked that question, but create a mold that's really precision, and then fit them together really tightly, and maybe eliminate the need for a traditional grout.
Glued on the bottom, or?
Yeah, probably glued. Yeah.
And what about for houses? Have they used them as brick? And in which case, can you use mortar on that? Or?
You'd want to use like some sort of a epoxy or like a super glue or something to hold it together, probably.
As the Precious Plastics Missoula Center gets further along in its build, I think all of those things can be explored fully down the line. Just to step back a second, I'm probably going over my time too, but all the products here were really created with just this shredding machine and an array of 4 toaster ovens and some simple molds. So with some funding and a little good faith from the community, this could become something that's awesome and expansive, and has the ability potentially to deal with a lot of plastic waste down the road. Initially, it's going to be kind of piecemeal and just little small products to get it going, and then once those things start to sell, then the project can grow and the machines can be scaled up potentially like 5 times their size. So his question was if there's a concern for microplastics coming off of the products once they're installed in the environment, in the pedosphere. Yeah, I think that's definitely a concern that should be explored, and I think I'm about out of time. But, I got 1 minute.
I got an idea for you.
Sure.
So set this up down at the farmer's market and have the kids bring their plastic and just let people do it.
That's a great idea. Yeah, and I think the other, the other big attractive thing about it is that people from the community could potentially come in and create usable, functional products, and it can be something that boosts our local economy and creates jobs for people that want to create usable products out of the plastic that would otherwise go in the landfill or go wherever it's going now.
Yeah, so your ultimate business model, is it to manufacture, basically to remanufacture products, or is it to develop the machines that they, other enterprises could use in-house to manufacture their products?
Well, the machines have already been developed. The plans are open source for them. So the idea is to create, a local model so that it can be seen locally and replicated nearby, and really to create usable, functional, desired products out of the plastic that fit the profile for plastic, which is a material that doesn't biodegrade for potentially over 400 years. So the question was, so she recognized that Mylar was something listed as a material that virtually doesn't ever break down, and I think that is something that could potentially fit into that profile of materials that, if they can't be melted and remolded, that they can potentially be ground up and inserted into a building block, like I was talking about the other types of plastic that can't be melted and remolded. That there are solutions that we can come up with for those materials through creative thinking that address that property of the material.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
My name's Caitlin Lewis, and I started Soil Cycle, which is a compost collection, or I should say food scrap recycling program in Missoula. And I'm really honored to be speaking at Arrow because I'm a huge advocate and fan of this program. But a year ago, I just had this idea. So it's pretty incredible that I'm standing here talking to you guys today. So this is our website. So what Soil Cycle is, because that's the first question everyone's like, what the heck is Soil Cycle? And the name I was hoping would kind of say it is that I'm going to compete over the drum cycle, or circle. So Soil Cycle is really focused on the complete food system. And I have a lot of goals and dreams and missions for this program that maybe it's not currently now, but it will be in the future, or I really hope with support, it will be. And so fosters that natural food cycle of collecting food scraps from people's homes and businesses, and then recycling them into reusable compost that then they get back. So I think that's a really key part of Soil Cycle, is that our subscribers get compost back, which a lot of programs aren't doing. And then we really push growing your own food, growing your own things, and then ultimately you're still a subscriber, so you're putting that back in your food bucket and giving it back to us. So we're completing the cycle, but we're doing it by pickup on bike. So that's where the cycle part comes in. There's a lot of reasons that we've picked bicycles, which I can go into later. But the main reason I'm not here to tell you that compost is important or it can save the world, because I'm sure that you guys already believe that or know that to some extent. But I want to say that I'm thankful to have tapped into a sustainable movement rather than just a service. And I really want to focus on community empowerment and being able to show that we can get as many community members involved in this cycle as possible, because food waste is such a community problem that I think it needs a community to solve. And so I'm not just hoping to gain profit off of this or to make Soil Cycle something that's just my own. I want it to be the whole community of Missoula's. And so we have volunteers cycling around, not just me anymore. I just brought on 2 co-owners who are both here today to make this happen. And the long-term dream is to create an indoor vermicompost facility for Missoula to offer much better quality soil and compost than we currently have. So that's where my dream is. That's what we're doing. I think when I wrote this, of course I write a speech and worry about saying it perfectly, and I haven't even looked at it. Which is how it happens. But I wrote this and I said, I looked and we have 7,000 pounds diverted, and I looked yesterday, and we weigh all our compost buckets that we pick up, and it's closer to 8,000 and growing. And so in April, I think there was like 3,000 pounds. And so from April to today, a couple thousand pounds that we've diverted and moved in Missoula by bicycle. And we currently are taking everything to Garden City Compost, which is a city's facility, which is an incredible resource. But we've had a lot of comments and found that the community wants better compost than that. And so we need the support to build our own vermicompost. Yeah. Well, asked if that we have a standard whether materials need to be organic, and where that would be, I think, ideal. I can't guarantee that anything that we put in is this is organic apple core, this is organic banana peel, and so we had to draw the line and say that diverting food waste is more important than specifically organic, and then hopefully that once we can process with worms, it'll help with those chemicals, but it's not perfect. Yeah.
So the part two of that would be like most composting facilities generally go out of business because they're laced with persistent herbicides. So how are you mitigating the persistent herbicide problem?
I need more knowledge to learn about it and people like you to help.
How many subscribers do you have? How many of those are businesses, like restaurants?
Yeah. So right now we have about 65 residential subscribers that are homes, and then 4 small businesses in an apartment complex.
How long does it take you to return compost?
How long does it take to return compost? We return compost like 3 times a year. So I mean, when our subscribers are gonna want it in like early spring, summer, and then fall to put your garden beds.
For those of us not from Missoula, can you tell us how Garden City Compost works?
Oh yeah, how does Garden City Compost work? So the city just passed a 0 by 50 waste initiative, and part of passing that, the city bought Eco Compost. I'm trying to like project as loud as I can. Eco Compost, which is a composting facility that was here in Missoula, and so now the city takes all sorts of green waste, and it's also connected to the wastewater treatment facility, which they use. I don't know, is that answering your question? So it's a large scale city composting facility.
But if you're taking your stuff there, then are they weighing it and giving you back? How's that work since you're giving it back to people?
So right now we're kind of a little bit of a deficit because we pay them to process and we have to pay to get compost back. Yeah. She asked about education and like what to put in compost. When I started, I was like, oh, people are just going to be like so excited about compost, and a lot of that has been education. So we do a lot of outreach and education, and our subscribers have been really awesome about what they can and cannot put. I mean, there's a lot of like, here's the do's and do's nots, here's like the benefits, and so there is a huge education component, but I love communicating and education, so I think that is all fun. But I mean, yeah, you do have to watch a little bit and monitor things, but by the time people sign up, they are pretty aware of what to she asked what the dream plan is without limitations. Thank you. That's a great question. This is what I get like. This is what I think about all the time. And there's a lot of possibilities. The most realistic possibility in dream, I think, is to start in a warehouse space, about 2,000 square feet. We can process a lot of food waste in just really not that big of a space. I want it to be centrally located in Missoula, not only because we're biking to keep it sustainable as possible, but also so it's visible. I think, like I said, it's a community problem, food waste, and so to keep it as visible as possible, and we would really want to have an education and a classroom component in this space to show kids how this is done, to show everyone, not just children. But so I mean, ultimately, land would be an amazing thing. But where we want to use worms and grubs to be able to process, it's just fostering the natural system of what happens out in nature. And so, I don't know. Does that answer your question? He asked how much food is actually going into the Missoula landfill right now. Brian, do you remember what those numbers were?
I think it was something along the lines of 280,000 tons a year.
About 280
That's just food waste.
tons of food waste in a year in the Missoula landfill. And that's like with touted like a sustainable community. Yeah, it's a lot. And I think about 65% of what's in our landfill is compostable.
So if Missoula's got a goal to be zero waste,
Yeah.
and you got a plan for dealing with some of that food waste, they should give you land and money to do it.
I agree.
You just asked them for that.
Thank you, Max.
Make it happen, Max.
Here you go. Yeah. About 40% of our food waste happens before it even gets to the restaurant or grocery store, which is huge. So we're just tackling like a small piece, which feels daunting sometimes. So we haven't worked specifically with grocery stores yet. I've talked to the food bank here, and I think food rescue is a huge thing that needs to happen, feeding people with the food that they can be eating. So eventually, I would love to have bins all around Montana, pallet-sized bins, where we can work with people to dump food waste that's not edible anymore and process it somehow. Brad, what's the sticker answer?
Okay, so the sticker answer, I can show you an example. There's a banana right here. And, I don't know. I didn't plant. This isn't a plant, but there's a sticker on this machine. So there it is. Yeah, proof. So and so I just take the stickers. I mean, they're all unique, and I honestly, every time I'm done, I just put them under my cabinet in the house. So if you ever come over the house, you look, it's like, okay, there's the last 2 or 3 years worth of stickers. It's the same thing. You put them in the compost, and then like, why is this in my garden? There have been some interesting studies recently. Somebody just went and dug through a bunch of German soil. This is all supposedly organic soil, and there's plastic in it. It's just this stuff it's gotten ground up X number of times. So the better thing, obviously, you need to track the fruit. So can we get to something where you just print a biodegradable carbon-based label on the fruit? I could even see like branding the fruit, right? Just putting a little heat signature on there, something to scan it, so you're removing that plastic kind of upstream. But my little solution is I just kind of stick them all over in kind of secret, invisible places. That
I think Sweden and Denmark have worked with laser engraving.
Yeah, laser engraving. So that'd be another one, just to plant it right on the skin. It's there anyway, and you can imagine, like especially with that banana peel, just having something that's enough contrast to be read by the skew. So, yeah.
Every compost organization that I've talked to has had problems with stickers.
Yep.
So take them off, stick them on your ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise you need to come up with a technology or a machine to do it, right? Because it's just too many, it's too much manual labor. So, yeah.
Then semicolon, and then what are some possible solutions? So it's 2 parts.
Yeah. So the first question is, what are the barriers to making our different solutions work, and then what do we see as the path forward? Is that the right?
From each of your lenses.
You want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go first. I think the greatest barriers for us is, like Dylan said, financial barrier. We have support, we just don't have the financial support and space that's centrally located. And with those things, I think we can make a lot of amazing things happen.
So I talk a little bit about the finances in my book, and basically for me, I just had this tiny little thing of garbage. And I'm like, why am I paying to throw things away? and you'll see that I have like a 12-step naysayers if you want to take a look at the book. So like, why am I paying as much to throw my little tiny 2 pounds a week away that someone's got this mountain of whatever next to their house? So for me, it was just like, well, I want to save $300 a year. So that was my my own little financial hurdle to get over. And I think like we talked about the glass, plastic, the metals. We need more local manufacturing. When we lost the pulp mills, for example, I don't know, every time you drive on I-90, you probably see that giant pallet field. I think they're finally starting to clean it up. But that was a lot of ways a neat little zero waste resource. Where the old pallets, the old construction waste was going back into manufacturing. So I think just having local manufacturing solutions. Remember that middle stream I talked about, sort of, because I see, right here we've got the berry solution, doing the composting. I think we want to stay away from the burn as much as possible, but sort of getting to the build is where we need to go. So same answer to the same question, right? Is manufacturing bottlenecks are the problem. That also needs to be the solution.
Yeah. And maybe part of that is maybe having sites for storage of materials.
Sure. Yeah.
And sorting of materials, because there is so much waste beyond what has even been mentioned between the three of us that isn't handled by home resource and just goes to the dump, and it's all just piled in the dump. There are people that I don't know if anyone has heard of this as a potential reality for the future, but that we may be actually mining our dumps.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
We should maybe head that off at the pass and have have sites devoted to certain materials collection and storage. Little known fact, but Bill Gates owns 30% of Republic stock, so he knows what's in there. He knows where his computers go, and but I do think a better solution is, as Dylan said, head that waste off before it gets to the dump, becomes a giant methane bomb, becomes attractive for wildlife and things like that. Another thing I talk about in the book is integration, and so obviously storage of plastics is one thing, and I think better integration of the existing facilities that we do have, right? So we've got the food bank, that's sort of a zero waste food solution. We've got Home Resource, which is a zero waste building material. We've got FreeCycle for bicycles. We have Goodwill. We already have all these great sort of zero waste facilities. I think it's just a matter of integrating them and having what's typically called a MRF. It's just called a materials recovery facility. So one thing I envision is, here you come, instead of going to the dump, you come into a large linear facilities. Here goes the plastics, here goes the electronics, here goes your food waste, here goes whatever, and then maybe at the end you've got a car detailing shop, and maybe you go see the movies, but something where some real value is being added, right? So you go through with all your nasties that you were going to take to the dump anyway. Pay a fee, but then end up at the end of that service line with a shiny clean car. That's my little fantasy.
What's the best way to support integration of these different facilities? Because that's a common theme in a lot of different communities.
Yeah.
So people have,
So she asked what the best way is to support the integration of these different facilities. I think really the way is just to support each one, and I think the integration is happening. I think it's just a matter of building momentum.
Yeah, I know so Jeremy Drake has worked at Home Resources, worked a lot on writing the zero waste plan. Chase Jones at the city is the sustainability coordinator, if you will, and I think it's just a matter of finding the right public-private partnerships. Identify the right chunk of real estate. Is it at city services? Is it near the landfill? Is it somewhere else? Or is it an all of the above? I think it could also just be an all of the above, co-located next to a community garden or a permaculture location or what have you, so that the poor person doesn't have to drive here, there, and everywhere to Z-dub their stuff. Yeah. Good questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah. Kalina.
So I think, according to the Department of Environmental Quality, the current law reads that if material sits in one place for a year,
Right.
it's considered trash.
Right. Okay. Yep.
So, and I only know about this because when we started to struggle with glass recycling,
Yeah.
and people started to stockpile it,
Sure.
and then there's little nudges of, okay, we need to
Move
move
it.
this, right?
Yep.
But in a state like Montana, where we're the fourth largest state, we still have just 1 million people spread out. Do you guys think that maybe that law should or could be changed, should be changed, in order to store, separate, and then when there's enough product, right, to bring it to a MRF or bring it somewhere? Because the current system, right, if we have to move it faster, then it's just so expensive to move material around the state, right? So I don't know how to ask that question more succinctly, but I'm just, the existing law and the future of how we could handle materials in the state. What do you guys think of that law?
I think the answer is yes. It needs to be changed. So
What needs to be changed?
what the law needs to be changed that if you've stockpiled for more than a year, you're hoarding or you've got trash or whatever. It has to be moved. But you can look at other examples. So forest slash piles are another example. They're sort of sitting out there. Are they going to be burned? No, they should actually be metabolized or turned into biochar. Gosh, I don't know. What about Knife River with their mountain of pea gravel or sand? Is that trash? I don't know. It's just sand. So yeah, I think when you look at this glass, for example, that was just some poor innocent grain of sand sitting on a beach somewhere, and and as long as it's clean, and I think this has always been a big problem with these centralized glass collection places. Just one lime in the Corona bottle or one just misstep tends to attract animals, rodents, ends up with health issues. So no, I think as long as it's clean, make your glass pile as large as you like. Because a lot of times what we'll see, like a federal contract will say, hey, we need a certain amount of post-consumer waste glass in this project, and somebody from you'll get two companies competing, like one from New Jersey and one from Utah, competing over 39 cents a pound, 38 cents a pound. And meanwhile, because we don't have those central stockpiles, Montana loses that bid, loses that opportunity. So I was not aware of that law, but thanks for bringing it up. So the question is, what government agencies do we work with, or should a citizen approach in order to make zero waste and sort of next gen recycling a reality? And so at the DEQ there's an air division. So we just were able last year. There's a company trying to set up. They're like, we don't want to burn fossil fuels to stay warm. We'd rather burn biomass. Well, you probably heard a few years ago the biomass facility at the university was killed because of airshed issues. They were just afraid of that. There were also logging contract issues. But so there is an air quality division at the DEQ that deals with that. We also got our air permit through the county. Just with the Ben Schmidt, and just sit down with the guy and say, hey, listen, the Europeans have figured this out. They've got actually super crazy air restrictions there to be able to burn biomass in this airshed with virtually no particulate emissions. There's also a solid waste division at the DEQ. The Public Service Commission also deals with solid waste handling, and it sounds like they just reversed their decision. Everyone read about that. L&L was recently granted a license to haul solid waste in Missoula, so actually to compete with Republic. I think what really needs to happen there is somebody needs to come up with a separate MRF so that the poor L&L guy doesn't have to drive everything to the landfill, right? He can actually bring it to the MRF, or bring it to Precious Plastics, bring it to the, or you have to ride your bike, right? Is that true? Ride along. Okay, but
I think for us, if you don't mind me,
yeah.
I think especially with the city zero waste policy, I think it's a great time to be able to push on our city in the state of Montana for zero waste and composting to provide space. Where did my advocate go? To provide space at a reduced rate for people that are really trying to meet that goal. And with the DEQ waste law, I think it's also about changing our perception of what the word and term waste means. And not seeing it as waste, but seeing it as potential value. And I think that would change our mindset a lot.
Yes.
We get to ask. Okay. I want to ask about how do we get a glass recycling back, and I kind of want to go with the idea of along the lines of the plastic stuff. Surely there's been some stuff that will melt glass and make things out of glass. Glass requires 1600 degrees to melt, so it seems like it would be a little warmer.
Yeah.
But it also kind of seems like rig up some Fresnel lenses and things like that, and something could be relatively automated with zero energy.
Yeah, and
So the question was.
So the question was, how can we get back to recycling glass in Missoula? So currently there's an outfit in Helena that's coming through town occasionally, and I think it's e-recycling. But anyway, I think, part of that is potentially being able to clean and remarket glass containers that are still whole and reusable, and create new lids potentially for those glass containers out of recycled plastic, and perhaps there's a market for those items right back to the industries that use them and to begin with. And if they're not marketable, they can be stored until that's determined, and then crushed and melted and or used in road aggregate or whatever. And I think that could probably go hand in hand with plastic.
But specific to the glass recycling in Missoula, I think that's IE recycling.
IE, yeah.
But he's moving back to Helena, and so I think that's going to be taken over by an organization that is part of the Missoula Interfaith Collaborative.
And they are doing pickups occasionally at Fresh Market on Broadway. I saw a little informational blurb there just the other day.
Yeah, and sorry, what he was referring to is it's called a brand new organization called Recycle Works, and it's just a couple really dedicated young individuals that want to bring glass recycling back. So supporting them and finding space right now to store glass is their
I've got a little glass recycling story. So I worked a lot with Martin No Runner, and I had a pretty cool picture of it up here. I don't know if this guy's going to come up or not, but Martin No Runner was IE Recycling, and was doing curbside. Can you type that password? There's a password there. And he was getting kicked off his property. So his lease ran out. The owners had to move, and he's like, Layton, I'm driving all my glass to the dump. I'm like, no, Martin, you can't do that. It's, it accounts for fraud, right? To say I'm a glass recycler, but I'm going to the dump. So I came up. Let me find my website. What I managed to do was take almost all of his glass and run it over to, where's Boris? Hang on. Run it over to Diversified Materials. So I mentioned, there it is. So I mentioned Knife River, their pile. So this stuff is now sitting over at Diversified Materials between Reserve and Russell on River Road. I just kind of discovered them one day, made that little business-to-business connection. Mark, the owner at Diversified, said, yeah, bring it over here. So they did, and they're going to run that through their giant washer. So they run through, there's a four-deck screener, sand, gravel, etc. So, this stuff will come back out of there. And I didn't bring it with me today, but as you mentioned, the glass to get it back into a molten form is 1500F versus your 350F, so it's more energy. But I've made a few tiles in small kilns, But again, you know, to get to sort of economic scale, you do need a big parabolic lens. Yeah, and we've actually done that with Fresnel lenses before. We've smelted metals, and it's tough to get the glass. But you could also we've also done it with the rocket stove. So it's doable. Yes.
So didn't DOT? I mean, they were using it in the paving materials for a couple of years in Montana, and then it seems like they quit doing it, which is a great way because you don't have to have an oven. I mean, they're just incorporating it.
Right.
But does anybody know why that quit?
Yeah, the question is whether or not the DOT requires glass in their pavement, and it's pretty much at the whim of the administration, right? It's not always the most cost effective, so it happens to be, you know, some legislature says, like I said before, you know, X% of your aggregate has to come from post-consumer waste glass, so it's just a matter of, you know, somebody proposing the bill and people voting on it, and it actually happening.
But it did happen for a couple of years.
Yeah, it did.
About 20 years ago.
Right. Yes.
Just to follow up on that, I think some of it was where are you collecting the glass, where's the machine that's pulverizing, and then where's the road construction project. And I think all those miles make it really hard economic.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a pretty narrow, I think it's like 15 miles beyond. The glass is very heavy, but it's pulverized. So I'm in the Flathead Valley, and we've had a pulverizer in our valley. We're very fortunate for probably 15 years, maybe 10. And but they're leaving, and so the pulverizer is currently in the Flathead Valley, but we have to raise the funds to buy it from the company. We want to keep it in the valley. The barrier, I would say, is not finances, but education with respect to glass, because to me, it's educating construction companies and road companies through the administration that it's worth the recycling value to use the glass as a paving material, as a building material. It can supplement or substitute for gravel to a pretty good percentage. But it's a huge education barrier to get the companies to use it. Gravel is known, it's cheap, it's, you know, what my grandfather did, so that's why.
There has to be an economic upturn. You know, like at the end of the day, like it or not, we still answer to the almighty dollar. One other example, I didn't cover it much. I cover a little bit in the book is biochar as a solution for biomass waste, and right now we are seeing a really cool uptick in the demand for biochar. And you know, I think the other answer is just, you know, go down to was it upcycled? You know, go down to upcycled. You know. And buy this for $10 so that that the businesses survive. You know, same thing. You know, buy a copy of my book. You know, subscribe to the curbside composting. It's just a matter. I mean, that's you know, like it or not.
Vote with your dollar.
Vote with your dollar. You know, dollars. And so if you're thinking of starting such a company, you do have to go through the pains of the economic analysis. You know, the full techno-economic analysis, just, you know, because you're dealing with, you know, fundamentally you're dealing with mass, you know, energy, and time, and money. I guess those are kind of the four inputs and outputs to any successful venture.
I think with education too, it's being very patient and explaining why it matters and why there's value in it. And I guess I'm lucky to be like working with dirt, which is on a sustainable level, but also on an agricultural level, and people understand that, like, that value and carbon added to the soil. But I mean, just in our venture, I've noticed it takes, you know, 1 to 5 months for someone to realize it exists, and then maybe feel guilty enough to subscribe or to participate. I maybe shouldn't use guilty, but that's a little bit of it, is that they see value in it. And so it takes time and patience and a lot of education. We're fostering habits, not just a service.
This is kind of an out there question, maybe. The community just has said they want to be 100% renewable energy. But I was reading an interesting article on 25 years down the line, we're going to have a huge amount of solar panels that are going to need to be dealt with. And the harder ones to deal with are the cheaper, junky ones from China. And if we can, in some way, deal with, here's the standard that's going to be installed in Missoula or something, so that down the line there will be a way of dealing with that in a way that, they could be recycled. So is there any thoughts on how to get out there ahead of the waste in a way before?
Yeah. So to get out ahead of the waste of PV panels when they're retired in the future, maybe to write letters to those PV panel producers and gain their allegiance in dealing with that waste. So when the panel is retired, I'm sure that there are materials in that panel that are reusable and able to create new panels, and then it's up to creative and scientific solutions for the remainder of the panel and what happens to it.
Can the city set standards too?
I doubt it. So the question is, how do you recycle a solar panel? And there are numerous scientific publications, a lot of them actually out of China, on how to take and recycle a solar panel. So, just the value of the aluminum itself. Typically the frame is aluminum. The wafer itself, which is, believe it or not, it's only 100 microns thick. It's as thin as your hair. We've done soldering with these things. It's like soldering Pringles potato chips together. It's amazing. There's a little bit of silver, along them, all that circuitry. So there's some value there. A lot of it still is just that glass, but we still have to make them. We still have to build them. It just comes up again with somebody coming up with a creative way to take that aluminum, put it back in aluminum. The same thing with the silicon, the precious metals, etc. But I'm convinced we'll do it, or even just use the old panel as a building material. You build your earth ship out of old panels, just like you might from old crates, tires or shipping crates or whatever. So,
isn't the cadmium in the panels the most toxic element? It's also a rare.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll see cadmium, germanium, arsenic. There's a lot of rare earth metals that are in there that make them work great, but you certainly don't want to breathe. The real danger there is typically in the manufacturing, where those rare earth elements are in a gaseous form. Sort of like asbestos, right? Nobody wants to breathe asbestos, but as long as you kind of don't touch it, it's sequestered.
So there are arguments that the amount of power you get from a solar panel is like 100 times more toxicity to the earth than nuclear power. When you talk about toxicity per watt you can get from it. And it turns out it's not entirely true, but there is some truth to it. But with those heavy metals that are in it that are so toxic, they're also very valuable, and we're running out of them. So it's possible that by the time 20 years from now that your modern solar panel is retired, and I do think we're getting more lifespan out of solar panels now, so it might be 30 years, but by the time it's retired, that those heavy metals that are embedded in those old solar panels probably have great value. So you might even get more money for it when you retire than when you bought it.
Right. That's typically the case. It's what we see in electronics is, early electronics, they kind of had to overkill before, they engineered it right down to the circuit level. There used to be a lot more, there's more gold in a TR-86 than there is in a Pentium chip, for example. Great job on the questions, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been a great morning. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you for caring.
Yeah. I know we're kind of preaching to the choir here, but spread the word. I talked to someone who said, yeah, I just bought your book at a used shop in California for $2 or whatever, but it's just like any, it's like any commodity, right? The second you drive your car off the lot, it loses 50% of its value or whatever.
Don't people like to come up?
Yeah.
And so we've got a person on board that is interested in writing grant proposals for us, but we could use more of that. anywhere that somebody sees themselves as being able to help with any aspect of the program, we could use your help. We've got a clipboard inside at our table. There's an email sign-up list on there if you're interested in receiving further communication or just being in touch with us and helping to make the project a reality.
Do you know how many precious plastic chapters there are around the world?
I don't. I want to say it's on the order of several thousand at this point. But when I looked at the map like 6 months ago, there were none in the Northwest United States. Like, this area is bare in terms of projects for precious plastic.
Where are there chapters that you're aware of?
So you could get on preciousplastic.com, and I was gonna show you a little. They've got a community portion of the website that shows you everyone that's kind of taken up the banner in their area of the world, and what kind of products they're making, or where they are in their process. There's a whole community of people who are more versed in the chemistry of plastics and figuring out ways that other types of plastic can be dealt with. And
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Europe. Right?
yeah. So it's happening.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.